At a high-end antique shop in Willow Creek, a black teenager eagerly searches for the perfect gift for his younger brother. But the moment he steps inside, his excitement is swiftly cut short by the distrust of the shop clerk. When he accidentally knocks over a small figurine, her suspicion spirals into unfounded accusations. Minutes later, the police arrive, taking her word at face value and restrain him. But what they don't know is that this young man has a formidable ally, his mother, and she's about to flip the situation in a way no one saw coming. It was a crisp Saturday morning in Willow Creek, a quaint rural town in upstate New York, where life unfolded at a leisurely pace. Couples wandered through the town square, kids squealed as they chased each other around the gazebo, and locals exchanged warm nods on their way to the weekly artisan market. The autumn sun bathed everything in a soft amber glow, making the town feel like a postcard. But for Marcus Hayes, this day was about more than soaking up the weekend. He had one mission: to buy the perfect birthday gift for his younger brother, Jamal. Marcus had been saving for months, picking up extra shifts at the local diner, diligently tucking away every tip and paycheck to afford something special. He'd finally settled on the perfect gift, a vintage pocket watch from Sterling Antiques, the most renowned antique shop in town. He'd walked by it countless times, pausing at the window to admire the intricate display, picturing Jamal's grin when he opened it. Today was the day. He gripped his wallet in his jacket pocket, comforted by the crinkle of the cash inside. This wasn't just a purchase. It was a testament to his care, a gesture of everything he wanted to give his brother, despite their family's challenges. As he neared the shop, the polished oak door and leaded glass windows gleamed in the sunlight, mirroring the charming streets behind him. He paused briefly, tugging at his jacket, unbuttoned, to reveal a crisp, button-up shirt beneath. He knew how some folks reacted when they saw a young black man in a jacket. He brushed the thought aside. Not today. Just go in, buy the watch, and get out. Taking a deep breath, he pushed open the heavy door, and a delicate bell tinkled through the shop. Inside, Sterling Antiques was just as he'd imagined. Polished wooden cases, velvet-lined trays, and rows of glittering silver and porcelain under warm, almost dazzling lights. The faint scent of aged wood and lavender polish hung in the air. The customers were mostly older, well-dressed women, their pearl necklaces catching the light as they examined candlesticks and brooches worth more than Marcus had earned in his life. He ignored their sidelong glances, his eyes fixed on the pocket watch he'd come for. Behind the counter stood Evelyn Harper, a middle-aged white woman with neatly pinned auburn hair and keen, appraising eyes. Her face was polite at first, but as her gaze settled on Marcus, her demeanor shifted. Her lips tightened, her fingers gripped the counter just a bit harder, and her eyes, once idle, now held a sharp scrutiny. Marcus felt it instantly. That subtle change, that unspoken but piercing question that always lingered when people like her looked at people like him. What are you doing here? Marcus had faced that look before, had felt the heavy suspicion that followed him like a shadow whenever he entered places where people assumed he didn't belong. But he wouldn't let it stop him. He approached the counter with a courteous smile, pointing to the pocket watch in the case. "I'd like to see that one, please," he said, his voice steady, calm, the way his mother had taught him to speak when dealing with folks like this. Evelyn, however, didn't budge. She crossed her arms, tilting her head slightly. "Are you sure?" she asked, her tone laced with condescension. "That one's quite pricey." Marcus's stomach nodded, but he kept his face neutral. He reached into his pocket, pulling out his wallet, revealing the carefully folded bills he'd worked so hard for. "I'm sure," he said firmly. "I've got the money right here." Evelyn's eyes flicked to the cash, her mouth twitching as if its presence offended her. Instead of easing up, she seemed to stiffen further. Her fingers hovered near the phone on the counter. She didn't reach for the watch. Instead, she let out a soft, almost amused huff. And where exactly did you get all that money?" Her voice was light, but the accusation beneath it cut deep. Marcus tensed. "Excuse me?" he asked, though he knew where this was headed. Evelyn raised an eyebrow. "It's just a lot of cash for someone your age," she said, her eyes locked on his face. "Did you, borrow it? Maybe find it somewhere?" Marcus's jaw tightened. He took a slow breath, forcing himself to stay calm. He hadn't done anything wrong. "I work at Rosie's Diner," he said, pronouncing each word clearly. "I saved up for this." Evelyn made a faint sound of skepticism, shaking her head slightly. She murmured, drumming her nails on the counter. "And you expect me to believe that?" Marcus swallowed the anger rising in his throat. "Yes," he said flatly. Evelyn let out a dry chuckle, as if she'd heard a bad joke. "Well, I suppose I should be flattered you thought you could fool me," she said, finally moving toward the case. "But I've been here a long time, kid. I know when something's off." Marcus's hands balled into fists at his sides. He forced them to relax. This was supposed to be straightforward. He hadn't come here to be humiliated. "Can I just see the watch, please?" he asked, his patience wearing thin. Evelyn sighed, as if he were troubling her, but she finally pulled out the velvet tray and set it on the counter. "Be careful with it," she warned, her tone sharp. "It's worth more than you probably make in a year." Marcus bit back a retort, saying nothing. He reached out, carefully lifting the pocket watch, feeling the cool metal against his fingers. It was perfect, just as he'd pictured. But as he turned it slightly, admiring the engraved details, the smooth surface slipped from his grasp. The watch hit the counter with a soft clink, bounced, and landed on the hardwood floor below. The moment it happened, Marcus's breath caught. Before he could bend to retrieve it, Evelyn let out a shrill cry. "I knew it!" she shouted, her voice cutting through the shop like an alarm. Every head turned toward them. Marcus's eyes widened. "Wait!" Evelyn pointed at him, her face contorted with fury. "I knew you were up to no good. You were trying to pocket it, weren't you? Thought you'd slip it away." Marcus's stomach sank. "What?" "No, Evelyn lunged for the phone, her fingers dialing rapidly. "Get the police here now," she snapped into the receiver. "We've got a thief. Young black male jacket tried to steal from us." Marcus stood frozen, her words hitting him like a tidal wave. The shop went quiet, but the air was heavy with judgment, suspicion, fear. He felt every customer's stare boring into him, their postures shifting, a woman clutching her handbag tighter. His mind urged him to speak, to defend himself, but he knew. No one here would believe him. Not over her. Then, in the distance, the wail of sirens broke the air. The sound grew louder, a chilling howl cutting through the peaceful morning. Marcus's pulse pounded in his chest as the weight of the moment crashed over him. He'd known this could happen. He'd heard the stories, on the radio, in quiet family talks, in the worry in his mother's voice when she told him to be cautious leaving the house. But knowing it could happen, and living it, were worlds apart. His breath was shallow, his fingers twitching at his sides. Every instinct screamed to move, to run, to push back against the lie pouring from Evelyn's lips. But he did none of that. He stood still, forcing himself to breathe, because any sudden move, any wrong word, could escalate this. Evelyn's voice was commanding as she spoke into the phone, her free hand gripping the counter as if she were the victim. "Yes, right now. I need officers at Sterling Antiques immediately. He's still here, denying it. But I caught him red-handed." Her eyes flicked to Marcus, her lips curling into a smug smile, like she'd been waiting for this, like she'd anticipated it. "And hurry," she added, her voice dropping to sound urgent. "He's getting aggressive." Marcus's stomach churned, his fists clenched. Aggressive? He'd barely spoken, hadn't moved. Yet she was crafting a narrative everyone seemed ready to buy. He felt it in how the customers stepped back, their eyes darting between him and Evelyn, none questioning her. A woman in a tweed coat hugged her bag closer. An older man in a blazer shook his head, as if this confirmed his assumptions. Marcus swallowed hard, glancing at the pocket watch on the floor, the same one that had slipped from his hands, now a symbol of something far darker. He took a shaky breath and met Evelyn's gaze. "I didn't steal anything," he said, his voice low, controlled, but edged with barely contained anger. "You know that," Evelyn scoffed, crossing her arms. "Oh, please, don't play innocent. You thought you could get away with it, didn't you?" "But I know your kind," she spat, her words dripping with disdain, her eyes scanning his jacket, his jeans, his sneakers. "You stroll in here, acting like you belong. But the second I look away, you think you can take what's not yours. I see it all the time." Marcus's skin burned. "Your kind." The words stung, bitter and familiar. He didn't need to ask what she meant. Evelyn shrugged, feigning innocence. "What? You're offended now?" "I'm just stating facts. Shops like this deal with thieves daily, and I don't need to guess who's trouble." Marcus felt something break inside, something cold, sharp, suffocating. He wanted to yell, to tell her how wrong she was, how vile, but the words stuck in his throat. It wouldn't matter. In Evelyn's eyes, in the eyes of everyone watching, he was already guilty. The shop's door swung open with a gust of cool air, and 2 uniformed officers stormed in. The room shifted, the tension electric. Conversation stopped, and all eyes were on Marcus. "There he is!" Evelyn cried, pointing at him like he was a wanted criminal. "That's him! He tried to steal from me!" Marcus barely had time to react before one officer, a stocky man with thinning hair, his badge reading Lieutenant Grant, stepped toward him, hand on his handcuffs. "Sir, I need you to put your hands where I can see them." Marcus's breath hitched, his fingers twitched, but he stayed still, every muscle screaming to run, to protect himself. He forced himself to remain calm. Grant's voice hardened. "I said, hands where I can see them." "I didn't do anything," Marcus said, his voice steadier than he felt. Evelyn let out a dramatic scoff. "Are you really going to argue after I caught you?" She gestured wildly at the watch on the floor. "After you tried to pocket that? The nerve of you people." Marcus flinched. "You people." The second officer, younger, with alert eyes, Officer Reed, hesitated. His gaze flicked between Marcus, Evelyn, and the fallen watch. Unlike Grant, he didn't rush in. Marcus caught a flicker of doubt in his expression. Reed wasn't fully convinced, but it didn't matter. Grant was closing in, cuffs ready, his face showing no hesitation. "Son, I need you to step outside." Marcus's pulse thundered in his skull. His breathing was shallow. His mind raced through worst-case scenarios, each ending the same. Him on the ground, someone shouting, a news headline reading, "Black teen detained after attempted theft." He knew how these stories went. Evelyn's smirk widened, her arms crossed tightly, her stance relaxed. She thought she'd won. Marcus exhaled sharply, keeping his voice calm. "Call my mother," Grant scoffed, shaking his head. "Kid, you'll get your call at the station." "No," Marcus said, louder now, his voice ringing through the shop. "Call my mother now." Evelyn rolled her eyes. "Oh sure, let's call Mommy," she mocked. "Who is she? A lawyer? Some activist? What's she going to do? Demand justice?" She gave a dry, bitter laugh. Marcus ignored her. He reached into his pocket, slowly, deliberately, pulling out his phone. He dialed with steady hands. "Mom, I need you at Sterling Antiques now." Grant's brows furrowed, but he seemed unfazed. Reed, though, shifted, sensing something in Marcus's tone. The calm, the lack of panic despite the threat. Marcus wasn't scared. He was waiting. Minutes dragged like hours. The shop's air was thick, the tension heavy. Evelyn tapped her foot impatiently. Grant sighed, his grip on the cuffs loosening slightly. Reed glanced at his watch. The customers had retreated, whispering, some recording with their phones. Then the door swung open. A woman entered. Tall, commanding, her presence silencing the room. A tailored gray blazer hugged her frame, her boots clicked sharply on the floor, and her piercing eyes, so like Marcus's, scanned the scene. She held up a badge, flashing it with undeniable authority. "I'm Sheriff Angela Hayes," she announced, her voice slicing through the room like a blade. "Willow Creek Sheriff's Department." She fixed her gaze on Grant. "And this," she said, gesturing to Marcus, "is my son." The room fell silent. For a long, heavy moment, the shop was quiet, the weight of Angela Hayes' words pressing down, unyielding and absolute. Marcus held his breath, watching as realization hit the officers. Grant stiffened, his grip on the cuffs faltering, his confidence wavering. Reed, already hesitant, exhaled sharply, his posture shifting as he recalculated his next move. But it was Evelyn who reacted most sharply, her face twisted, the smugness gone, replaced by shock, anger, desperation. She blinked rapidly, as if denying the reality that this young black man, whom she'd so quickly judged, was the son of a woman who outranked everyone present. Her mouth opened, closed, opened again. What? She stammered, her voice stripped of its earlier venom, now tinged with near panic. Angela didn't glance at her. Her eyes stayed on Grant, fierce, unwavering. "Lieutenant," she said, her voice calm but laced with a dangerous edge. "I trust you have a solid reason for why my son is standing here, cornered, while you reach for your cuffs without asking him a single question." Grant shifted, his jaw tight, his hands lowering, though he still held the cuffs. "Ma'am, we got a call about an attempted theft," he began, his tone clipped, defensive. "We responded as protocol dictates." Angela tilted her head, eyes narrowing. "Protocol. And by protocol, you mean walking in, seeing a young black man, and deciding he's guilty." Grant bristled. "That's not what happened." "Really?" Angela said icily. "Because that's exactly what it looks like." Evelyn found her voice, its sharpness fueled by desperation. "I called because he tried to steal from me," she burst out, pointing at Marcus, her voice rising. "He dropped the watch and was about to take it. I stopped him just in time, and I did what any responsible person would do. I called the police before he could run off with my inventory." Angela exhaled slowly, her gaze shifting to Marcus for the first time since entering. He hadn't moved, hadn't spoken, hadn't tried to explain. He didn't need to. His eyes told her everything, the anger simmering beneath his calm exterior, the exhaustion, the frustration, the realization that even as the son of the town's sheriff, he was still just a suspect. She turned back to Grant. "Did you review the security footage?" Grant hesitated. "We were about to—" "No, you weren't," Angela cut in, her voice lethal. "You were about to detain him without evidence, without questioning him, without doing your job." Her quiet authority filled the room. Reed swallowed, glancing between Grant and Angela. "Ma'am," he said cautiously, his voice tinged with regret. "We should check the footage." Grant's eyes shot to him, betrayal evident, but he couldn't argue. Not now, not with who stood before them. He exhaled sharply, jaw clenched. "Fine." Evelyn's face twisted in disbelief. "What? No, I told you what happened. You're really going to listen to her?" She gestured frantically at Angela, then Marcus, her voice thick with scorn. "You saw him. You saw how he acted. This is absurd." Angela finally turned her full attention to Evelyn, and her gaze alone silenced the woman. Evelyn's defiance withered under the sheriff's quiet intensity, as if she realized the power she'd thought she held was crumbling. "Ms. Harper," Angela said, her voice calm but cutting. "Let me be perfectly clear." She took a deliberate step forward. "You're accusing a young man who came here to buy a gift for his brother. He saved his own money to support your business. You labeled him a thief because you decided, before he spoke, you didn't belong here." Her words hung heavy, tightening around Evelyn. "So I hope your security footage supports your story, because if it doesn't," her lips formed a thin, deadly line, "you'll answer for every word you've said." Evelyn swallowed, her confidence fracturing. Grant cleared his throat, shifting uneasily. "Let's check the cameras." No one spoke as the shop manager, who'd been frozen in the background, too stunned to act, hurried to pull up the footage. It played on a small screen behind the counter, showing the silent sequence. Marcus entering, speaking to Evelyn, showing his money, the watch slipping from his fingers to the floor. Every moment was clear. No theft, no crime, just a 17-year-old trying to buy a gift. The silence that followed was oppressive. Reed sighed, rubbing his face. Grant looked away, his jaw tight with frustration. Evelyn looked like the world had collapsed beneath her. Angela spoke again, her tone soft but lethal. "So, Lieutenant, what's next? Still planning to arrest my son?" Grant didn't respond. He knew better. Angela turned to Evelyn, her expression unreadable. "And you," she said, tilting her head. "Care to explain what you were so certain of?" Evelyn's lips quivered. She glanced from Angela to Marcus to the officers, then to the customers, now watching with shock, unease, and some quiet satisfaction. I... Her voice broke. She had no defense, just the crushing realization she'd misjudged and overplayed her hand. Angela nodded slowly. "That's what I thought." Grant cleared his throat, standing taller. "Ma'am," he said to Angela, his voice strained but professional, "I think we're done here." Angela raised an eyebrow. "No apology?" Grant's jaw clenched, but he stayed silent. Evelyn opened her mouth, searching for something to salvage, but nothing came. Angela exhaled, turning to Marcus. "Come on, son," she murmured. "We're leaving." Marcus didn't move at first. He stood, staring at Evelyn, at Grant, at the wreckage of the moment. He wanted to feel triumph, justice, but all he felt was exhaustion. These battles, even when won, never ended the war. He shook his head and followed his mother out. As he passed Evelyn, he met her gaze one last time. "All I wanted was to buy a watch," he said, voice calm but heavy with the moment's weight. "But I guess I got something more valuable instead." With that, he walked out, head high, shoulders straight, while Evelyn stood frozen, watching her control slip away. As Marcus and Angela stepped out of Sterling Antiques, the door closing behind them, the shop's tension lingered, thick like storm clouds. The moment should have felt like victory. But as Marcus breathed in the cool autumn air, his chest remained tight, his stomach knotted with something raw. His hands stayed fisted, fingers sore from clenching since Evelyn's accusation. Angela walked beside him, her presence steady. But he felt the quiet fury radiating from her. She didn't speak at first, her steps purposeful, her boots clicking on the cobblestone. They reached her SUV, parked nearby, before she turned to him, her face unreadable. "You okay?" Her voice was controlled, but beneath it was an edge, concern mixed with the weariness of fighting this fight too many times. Marcus exhaled, glancing back at the shop. Through the window, he saw Evelyn, rigid behind the counter, her face pale, eyes darting to the officers, as if seeking a lifeline. Grant stood stiff, jaw locked, while Reed looked torn between relief and shame. The manager, too spineless to step in, seemed eager to vanish. The customers, once quick to judge, now avoided eye contact, suddenly engrossed in anything else. "I don't know," Marcus admitted, running a hand over his face. "I should feel better. Like I proved something. Like I won." Angela studied him, then sighed, her face softening. "Son, you shouldn't have had to prove anything." Her words hit hard. His jaw tightened, and he swallowed a lump in his throat. "Yeah," he muttered, voice thick. "I know." They stood there, the weight of it all between them. Then the shop door opened again, and Marcus looked up to see Evelyn step out. His body tensed. Evelyn hesitated, her hand clutching her purse so tightly her knuckles whitened. She looked smaller, stripped of the arrogance she'd wielded so easily. Her face was stiff, lips pressed, as if wrestling with words. It was clear she'd debated speaking since the footage exposed her. Marcus's heart pounded as he waited. Evelyn took a step, then another. Her mouth opened, closed. Her eyes flicked to Angela, then Marcus. Finally, she exhaled, shaking her head, her face settling into wounded pride. She began, but stopped. No apology, no admission. She turned and walked away. Marcus let out a sharp, bitter laugh. "Figures," Angela scoffed, arms crossed. "Cowards never know how to apologize." Marcus watched Evelyn disappear down the street, her steps quick, as if fleeing her own actions. He'd expected it. People like her rarely owned their harm. But it still stung. Grant and Reed exited next. Reed glanced at them briefly, then looked away, his jaw tight, hands restless. Hill barely acknowledged them, nodding stiffly at Angela before heading to his patrol car. Marcus exhaled. "So that's it?" Angela glanced at him. "For now." Marcus looked back at Sterling Antiques one last time. Inside, customers resumed browsing, as if nothing had happened, as if a black teen hadn't just been accused of a crime he didn't commit. He clenched his jaw, shaking his head. "I just wanted to buy a watch," he muttered. Angela sighed, squeezing his shoulder. "I know, son." Marcus took a deep breath, his shoulders easing slightly. He turned from the shop, from Evelyn, from the lingering weight, and walked to the car. Justice had been served, but the fight wasn't over. It never was. Inside the SUV, Marcus leaned back, exhaling heavily. The weight of the ordeal settled into his bones, exhaustion weaving through him. Angela sat beside him, hands gripping the wheel, her nails leaving faint marks in the leather. The engine's hum filled the silence, but neither spoke. Outside, life went on. People passed by, cars parked. The sky stayed a calm blue. But inside, Marcus still felt Evelyn's accusation, the stares of those who'd watched and done nothing. Angela broke the silence. "You sure you're okay?" Her voice was softer now, a mother's, not a sheriff's. Marcus stared at the dashboard, fingers tapping his jeans. "I don't know," he said, voice rough. "I'm angry, tired, like none of this matters, because tomorrow it'll be someone else, and no one's gonna ask if they're okay." Angela inhaled deeply, her grip tightening before relaxing. "I know," she murmured. "It's a cycle. But today, we pushed back. Today, you didn't let them break you." Marcus gave a bitter laugh. "Didn't I? I stood there while she talked about me like I was nothing, and everyone just let it happen. Even when she was caught, she couldn't say it." He turned to Angela, frustration in his eyes. "How do you fight something that deep? How do you make people see you as a person when they've decided you're not?" Angela didn't answer immediately. She stared ahead, lips tight. When she spoke, her voice was quiet but firm. "By refusing to let them define you, by knowing who you are, no matter what they see, by proving them wrong again and again, even when they won't admit it." Marcus's jaw clenched, his gaze drifting out the window. It wasn't enough, never felt like enough, but maybe it was all they had. The silence grew heavier, more settled. Then Angela pulled out her phone. Marcus frowned as she scrolled through contacts, dialed, and lifted it to her ear. "Who you calling?" he asked, cautious. She didn't reply at first, waiting as the line rang. Then she spoke. "Laura, I need a press release drafted now. Yes, about Sterling Antiques." She glanced at Marcus. "I want an investigation into the dispatch call, a review of Lieutenant Grant's actions, and a public statement on racial profiling and misuse of emergency services. Make sure the media knows what happened today." Marcus's eyes widened. "You're really going for it." Angela lowered the phone, giving him a pointed look. "You thought I'd let this slide?" Marcus exhaled, relief and disbelief settling in. He'd seen too many stories like his and the same. Profiling, humiliation, accusation. And even when the truth surfaced, nothing changed. But this felt different. This was a fight that didn't stop at the shop door. He nodded, tension easing slightly. "Good." Angela returned to her call. "And Laura?" "Include Evelyn Harper's name in the statement. If she thought she could do this without consequences, she's mistaken." Marcus let out a slow breath, looking at his hands. Justice wasn't always instant, wasn't always tidy with an apology. But sometimes, it was accountability. And this time, he didn't carry it alone. 3 days later, Sterling Antiques was in the headlines. News outlets covered the incident, social media buzzed with outrage, and the shop's online reviews tanked with 1-star ratings. Evelyn Harper was on indefinite leave, though whispers suggested she'd been fired. An official statement condemned racial profiling, and an investigation into Lieutenant Grant began after body cam footage showed his rush to detain Marcus without evidence. Marcus scrolled through articles on his phone, the words blurring. He should have felt victorious. Instead, he thought of how close it came to going differently. If his mother wasn't who she was, if Reed hadn't hesitated, if there were no cameras, how would his story have ended? His thoughts were cut off by a loud cheer. "Marcus, look what Mom got me!" Jamal bounded onto the couch, holding out his wrist. The vintage pocket watch gleamed, its chain swinging as he showed it off. Marcus's chest tightened. "You like it?" Jamal grinned. "It's awesome." He paused, frowning. "But I thought you were getting it." Marcus hesitated. His mother had bought it, ensuring Jamal got his gift despite everything. The idea of returning to that shop, facing Evelyn's glare, or reliving that moment had been too much. "I picked it out," he said, forcing a smile. "That's what counts, right?" Jamal nodded, beaming. "Right." He hugged Marcus quickly before running to show their mother again. Marcus exhaled, watching him go. Maybe it wasn't a perfect ending. Maybe there'd never be one. But right now, Jamal was happy. And for now, that was enough. Join us to share impactful stories by hitting the like and subscribe buttons. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell for daily doses of powerful lessons and heartfelt empathy.